What's going on, Sandboxers? It seems like we've gotten another monthly Sandbox blog post update, so let's just get right into it because we got a lot of exciting news. Gary mentions people really love the Half-Life styled player controller. He wanted to make a physical player controller that wouldn't make you go flying across the map when you get hit by a physical object. So that's what he did here. He also mentions that he'll be making a technical post about this since he's asked many people about why they love Half-Life style player controllers. Unfortunately, many won't be able to tell you as to why. But most likely in this technical post that we'll get at some point, we'll have a bit of an understanding on how exactly Gary was able to mimic how Gordon moves, just like how Valve made him move in the Half-Life games. Next up, we have Scenic Hammer. So, scene maps were added last month, and while this might have been a bit confusing for me, at least in terms of understanding what scene maps really were, most of you guys in the community described what scene maps are, which is essentially tech demos or maps you can walk around in. And according to Matt, this left Hammer in the cold as you could not add doors, buttons, or triggers. Hammer is one of the most beloved things about the Source 2 tools, and while many of the tools have been modified to be directly added into the Sandbox editor, Hammer still remains but slightly modified with additional support for Sandbox. So now you're able to use Hammer with game objects and components. This is incredibly huge of an update as this opens up interactivity, but you'll also be able to have access to all regular components such as the new particle system, physics joints, and world UI. But this seems like this wasn't the only update for Hammer, as the Hammer action graph, you're able to create action graphs inside a Hammer to make stuff happen just like you would in the scene editor, according to Zix. Once more again, to all my Hammer map designers and enthusiasts, you guys should totally check this out because this seems like a perfect opportunity, plus it looks really cool and fun to use. Next, we have the dashboard. So Gary mentions the recent addition of a dashboard page. It'll show things like your achievement progress across different Sandbox games, a status feed to see what your friends are playing and what achievements they've unlocked, and there are plans to use the information to be shown directly in the game. So the Ragdoll component has gotten some major upgrades. Laidlad mentions that while the current model physics component doesn't allow for easy access to the rigid bodies and joints of each body part, the Ragdoll component is a work in progress that creates rigid body and joint components as child game objects. And as shown from some of these videos, this is probably my favorite part about this entire blog post, is you can just see how derpy all these Terrys look with the Ragdoll component being used. It's so awesome. I love this. Next, we have user pages. Gary added user profile pages this month, and these pages show off your achievements, gamer score, and some other stats. Plus, there's a link to view your Steam page profile too. Next, we have Asset Browser 2. Now, for Asset Browser 2, I talked about this specifically in a video recently. So if you do want to check that out, feel free to check out that video right here, but you should go and see what it's all about because there's just so many different quality of life changes that I think will help a ton of developers and newcomers get a little bit more adjusted with what you can do within the scene system and also what you could use with the assets and the new asset browser. And that brings us to our lightning round. So let's get right into it. A particle text renderer has been added. Action Graph Plus Plus is an upgraded version of the Action Graph made to support optional grid aligned mode for wires. There's a new stylized text renderer, which I can show you guys right here. It looks really cool. Dedicated servers are now added to the game, and the next step for dedicated servers is private code or server-side code, which is planned. So I know a ton of people were talking about that, and that's going to be a new possibility with what they're going to do. It's just that they weren't able to add it within this month. So most likely we'll hear more about it within the next month. Sound API changes have been made to Sandbox, and Depth of Field 2 has been added to the game. Thank you so much, Sam, for making the game look even more beautiful than it already is. Whew, all right, and that leads us off here to our summary. So a lot of updates with Sandbox this month, as Gary states. It feels like we've stopped tripping over our own feet so much and we're getting some real velocity now. But we have some major updates coming in very soon, most likely over the next couple of weeks to months, as we have 2 months left in the year before 2025. So what are some of these updates? Well, some of these updates include standalone / exporting games that are being finalized. The Steam store page is going to be going up next week, which I'll be covering and also making a video on in grave detail. The Steam inventory page should also be going live very soon. The human models will be appearing up on the avatar screen, which is also huge, since Facepunch and Gary mentioned that they would be removing Terry, even though you see Terry here and there, but the human models will be appearing up either way, which is really huge for a lot of people. And last but not least, the sandbox game mode is going to start making its first appearance. So we have a lot of things that are going on, but apparently there is like this rumor. And again, I'm going to throw the rumor thing up on screen right now. We don't really know. I'm going to take it with a grain of salt, and hopefully you can take it with a grain of salt too. But according to some people that are part of a sandbox council, which is essentially a bunch of devs that are working on improving things or finding issues that they can directly go and mention to Face Punch so that they could fix, because these will be high priority bugs and things like that, is that there is a rumor. The way that Gary has been talking about this is that most likely after the sandbox game mode is done, that the game will actually be releasing. Gary mentioned the last time that when it comes to the game itself, that it was going to release after the last game jam. And that was like at least a good 4 or 5 months ago. I could be wrong in terms of the amount of months, but still, it was a good couple of months ago, and we didn't really see much of anything happening because there was just so much other things that had to be done and added into the game that if it does happen, I guess we'll have to see. But I mean, with the Steam store page coming up very soon, the Steam inventory system going live, a lot of the bigger changes with the human models also being added, most of this stuff is very important. It's also kind of like finalizing everything. So it seems like if this is the actual last thing that they have to do is just work on the sandbox mode and then the game is out, then I guess so be it, right? I'm not going to really complain. I don't think anyone else is really going to complain, especially with you guys that want that. Again, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. Please take this as a rumor for right now, because again, that's kind of like what Gary was insinuating with the idea that he's most likely going to release the game after this comes out. Again, rumor, but still, regardless, this is massive news, and it seems like Sandbox's release is very close. Now, again, we have 2 months left in 2024. So does this mean that we'll get an end of the year release, or we'll get an early 2025 release? I don't know. I would like to hope either one of these things happen, because time is flying by very quickly. So either way, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to learn more about the Steam inventory system, which has been mentioned in the summary, please feel free to check out this video, which talks about it in more detail. And I will see you guys in the next Sandbox video. Thank you so much for watching.